Welcome to the Interreg Italia Malta I-Know programme. This is Seminar 6.6, Valuing a Business, Profit, Progress and Perception. You'll see from this slide that 6.6 comes from track 6, which is all about raising finance for your business. Valuation then, why is it important? Well, the basis of equity finance is that investors buy shares at one value and then later, perhaps up to 5 years later, they sell those shares for a larger value and make a profit, known as a capital gain. It is therefore critical to establish a valuation for the company ahead of raising equity finance, and this initial valuation is called the pre-money valuation. And the value after the finance round is simply that plus the money raised, known as the post-money valuation. Is valuation an art or a science? Well, a learned commentator was once asked how he arrived at a value for a new spin-out business involved in an initial funding round. His confidential answer was, as much as I think I can get away with. Now, that may sound a bit cheeky, and there are indeed a number of mathematical techniques that can give indications of worth. Art, or more precisely sentiment, still plays a part. For new business founders, the valuation process can be unknown territory, and so help is needed. In fact, help is required. Factors affecting valuation. Supply. Businesses are no different from any other product, such that high demand and low supply means higher prices and vice versa. Sector. Some sectors are more attractive than others, tends to go in cycles, and therefore attract higher prices. Sentiment. The general economic conditions will affect prices. In feel-good times, company valuations will be higher. Common methods of valuation. Most methods of company valuation assume that the business is trading, and so will have some meaningful profit and loss and balance sheet reports. Valuation is then based upon profitability, or a multiple of that, and the value of assets owned by the company. But, and it's a big but, for the new business with no meaningful trading history and no assets, this approach is flawed at best and useless at worst. So how do we value that? So a new business valuation then is based upon the plan and the cash flow forecast, the theoretical profitability of the business at some point in the future. A discount factor can be applied, reflecting an assessment of risk as to whether the company, the management team, can deliver the profitability that its cash flow forecast predicts, and then a cost for entry, which estimates what it would cost for a competing company to get to the same position. These steps allow for what is termed a net present value for the company to be determined. It can be very helpful, but some critics, it has to be said, call this process a guess based on a guess. Who can help you? Well, for the new business founder, setting a valuation for the company can be very daunting. It may appear that the accountant is the best place to start, and they are very good at valuing trading businesses, but many are less experienced at valuing new businesses, so check whether they are or not before taking their advice. You need someone who has experience of raising equity finance to help, and ideally somebody who themselves has raised it in your sector. Let's take a look at a startup case study, and slide 9 kicks us off with this case study of XYZ Limited. This isn't a real company, but it's based upon an anonymised case study. The simple table here looks at what happens in the first round of raising money. And here, all of the shares, there were 1 million issued, were purchased by the founders. They paid 0.06 of a euro per share, and by purchasing 1 million shares between them, that meant that they had to buy 60,000 euros worth. And because the company is issuing the shares, that money goes into the company's bank account. In terms of the valuation, the money spent is simply indicating a value of the company. So valuation at this point is really notional or nominal, and this isn't one that we really would focus on for valuing. Valuation comes in at the first real round of investment. So now the founders have started the company and they put in 60,000 of their own money, they would then seek equity finance from investment, and in this instance they decide to seek that from friends and family. To raise equity finance, they issue new shares and set a price, agreement between them, of 0.46 euros, so that by selling 200,000 new shares, they raise €92,000. Now, because they've issued new shares, and because the founders originally had 100%, since they no longer own 100%, it's said that they're diluted in their shareholding. In fact, in this case, down to 83.33%. And the issue of new shares to friends and family means that they have 16.67%. And that's summarised in the next slide. Equity, friends and family. So in round one, we looked at the money that the founders put in, but they were themselves buying shares in the company. Round two, we're now looking at the money being put in by friends and family of the founders. And you can see that they are purchasing 200,000 shares. They're purchasing those at a price of 0.46. And so 200,000 multiplied by 0.46 euros gives us money raised 92,000. Bear in mind that that money goes into the company bank account, not to do with the founders, because new shares have been issued by the company. At this point in time, the company itself is said to be worth 552,000. And the reason for that is that there are a lot of shares now being sold from the ones that were available. We've got 1.2 million, each at the price of 0.46. That gives us 552,000. Now, once the founders have spent the money they used from their own bank accounts and they've taken investment from friends and family, the next most common people to turn to are business angels. These are high net worth individuals who themselves then purchase shares in the company. And you can see from slide 13 that at round 3, 500,000 new shares are issued. Now, what this means is that the founders are diluted to 58.82%, friends and family down to 11.76%, and the business angels would have just under 30%. And between 20 to 30, perhaps around 25, is a very common amount of shares to be issued at each of these rounds at this stage. Importantly, though, however, notice that those shares have been issued at a higher share price. And this is based upon the fact that every time money was put into the company, the founders, the management team, have made progress by spending that on operational activity and can justify a higher share price. So at round 3, when these new shares are sold to business angels at 0.9 euros each, then 500,000 means that the company raises 450,000. And if we use the valuation of 0.9 for all of the issued shares, which are 1.7 million, we come to a valuation of 1.53 million. So the valuation takes no account of sales revenue or profit. Please note that. This is all about progress and perception of progress. The business is not yet trading, so it's nothing to do with profit yet. Rather, investors buy shares in the belief that the business opportunity is good and the founders are capable of delivering the business plan. Progress is therefore an all-important issue for the increasing value of the company and hence the rising share price. Luckily, the founders had help from an experienced entrepreneur in this case study who guided them through the options and defined a funding strategy. But make no mistake, equity finance is not easy. Founders should get the best advice possible. Common mistakes can arise over valuation and either raising too little, which means you can't deliver the business plan, or too much, which means you've wasted too much equity in a funding round. Do try and avoid self-proclaimed mentors and unaccredited accelerators that lack the experience to advise here. Get an experienced entrepreneur to help and ask your accounting firm if any of their high net worth clients might be interested to help you. That's the end of this presentation. It's a quick run through of equity finance and multiple funding rounds. Very, very complex issues are involved. You must seek advice from experienced mentors, ideally ones accredited by a validated incubator or accelerator facility, and always your own accountant. I hope that's been useful and thank you for your attention.